morning, depending on when you're watching this. Welcome to this Coaching Moment live conversation. Hopefully you can all hear me and see me. I'm checking my mute button. I made a mistake a couple times ago and was on mute for a while. So welcome if you are here live. If you're watching the replay, welcome to that as well. I love for these to be interactive, so feel free to share comments. If you're watching the replay from my website, perhaps, you can always jump over to Facebook and join in the comments even after the fact, 'cause I will certainly be checking those too. So love to have you all here. If you've never been to one of my Coaching Moment conversations before, let me do a quick introduction. My name is Angie Robinson, and I am a leadership coach and a team development consultant. So I help leaders and teams maximize their confidence and their performance and increase self-awareness, remove kind of some of the barriers that get in their way and get the results they're looking for. So I do that through one-on-one coaching, team coaching, and team development, leadership development workshops as well. And then I also do life coaching too. So that is a little bit about who I am. I'm just going to give it a quick, okay. So I'll just give you a little work history too. I have my own business. I have my own coaching and consulting practice for about 3 years. But prior to that, I spent over 20 years in corporate America, working for a few different organizations. I have an undergrad in hospitality and tourism management and a master's degree in org development and change leadership. I spent most of my career in human resources leadership roles. And so I have the experience from kind of working with leaders and teams in an HR capacity, but also having my own team. Since the age of 18, one of my very first jobs, I was a manager, and I've had direct reports all along. So I have kind of the both ends of the spectrum from an experience standpoint, all the while growing my career, starting a family, being a mom, just kind of wearing all those different hats. And so that is what I can bring to the table. I am also a huge Disney lover. Pointing that out. I like to point that out because it is a bit of who I am, and it's where I draw inspiration for my business. It's in my messaging, it's in the way I approach things, and so I think it's important to kind of honor some of the things that make you who you are, which is exactly what we're talking about today. This is the fourth installment episode, I'm not sure what to call them, of Coaching Moment Conversations. And so if you have missed the other 3, you can certainly go back and check them out in the videos here on Facebook or on my website. I have them all posted there as well. The first one I talked about was the magic of self-awareness, and that really kind of goes deeper into why I think self-awareness is so important. To me, it's very foundational, and I just got to put that up there. Tim, yay Disney, love it. For sure. The second one that I did for Coaching Moment Conversation was the magic of curiosity, and then finally the magic of compassion. These are all, in my mind, skills that are super important to all humans, but I really focus on leadership as well. So all things that are really important if you want to be the best leader, entrepreneur that you can be. So today we are talking about the magic of knowing your values. So one thing I always say is that self-awareness is pixie dust for making the most of our lives. And I mean our lives as a whole. So although I focus on leaders and teams the most, there is an integration, right? We are all one person wearing many different hats, and self-awareness is really foundational to our success overall. Hi Lou, thanks for saying hi. Love it. All right, so let's get into the magic of knowing your values. So when I say values, what does that mean? And if people have comments or you want to throw out there what you think it means, please, I would love it. I'm just kind of giving you the dictionary definition of values here that you can see. Basically, they're a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what's important in life, and then it's the core, right? It's the solid core of who you are and what you believe in. Now, if you work for an organization, or if you've worked for an organization before, I'm sorry, I just got to give shout outs. Hi, Paul. Hi, Mindy. So good to see you. Mindy is one of my coaching clients, and I love that I could talk about her. She's amazing. Glad to see you guys here. But in organizations, many organizations have values, or they usually call them core values. So if you've had that in an organization or somewhere where you work now, Hopefully you are familiar with those. But typically companies create these values for many different reasons, right? It's really to solidify what the company believes in, how they want their customers and their employees to experience them, ways that they want their teams to resonate with them. They also use values to guide in all their decision making, in their strategic planning, in their execution of their business plans. They're really foundational. Not all companies do them, but most do. I know in companies that I've worked for, I've helped create core values. And I have a client right now that we just finished doing their values. They're super important, but it's really complex on an organizational level, but really important. That same kind of thought process and methodology that companies use, individuals can use. So if you are a leader, an entrepreneur, you can go through the exact same process to determine what your core values are, or your values, what's important to you, that can help direct and guide. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to do that as a leader and why it's important. So let's jump into, why is it important? So how do you think being clear on your values makes a difference in your leadership, in your life? I'll share some of my ways. If you have other thoughts, please share them. I always love to hear what other people have to say as well. But here's what I think, is that it can make a difference because values provide guidance on decision making. They provide guidance on behaviors. How do I want to show up? How do I want to behave, right? I've talked about this in past episodes before on how we have kind of the logical brain and the monkey brain, our emotional brain. And when we're in situations, it can be really easy to default to that more emotional backside of the brain when we show up, right? Like that triggers, and we might show up in a way that we don't want to. If we're really clear and aware of what our beliefs are, what the core convictions or the core values that we have are, we can then just align quickly to say, is this, the way I'm showing up, aligned with my values, right? So it's a good guidance in that. Let's see. Also, it provides, well, I already said this, kind of, our values provide those checks and balances. So again, we can make sure that we're always aligning the things that we're doing with what those values are. In doing that though, one of the, I guess, kind of the biggest benefits I see is that it really can reduce and minimize complexity, stress, anxiety. We all know when something feels off, when we're doing something that we're not quite sure it's the right thing to do, or we have reacted in a way that, we might regret a little bit later, right? And that can become really stressful, anxiety ridden. And that something that is off typically has something to do with a misalignment of our values. And when we're aware of that, we can quickly make that determination and course correct, right? To help minimize some of that anxiety and stress. So I just have to pop up this question. Tim Begonia, is it okay if one of my core values is to be like Lou Mangello? If you don't know who Lou Mangello is, you must indulge yourself in that pleasure. Yes, Tim, you have permission. So good. So those are some of the reasons that I believe that knowing your core values can make a difference to you as an individual, but also it benefits your team, right? So the people that you are influencing, the people that you are leading, it also benefits them when you are clear on your values. So it allows us as a leader to lead with a clearer vision and clearer goals. If we're clear on our vision and our goals, we can then portray that to our team, and then they have clear guidance. I don't know if you've ever worked for someone or an organization before where messages were muddled, you didn't really know what we were doing, we didn't know why we were doing what we were doing. That is really disengaging. It's hard to work under that condition and be the best that you can be. So when there's clarity from your leader on their vision and their goals, then I know what I can do and I can move forward, right? So it helps the teams in that way. It creates transparency. So when you as a leader or a person are clear about your core values, you show up more authentically, more as yourself, which naturally leads to transparency. When there is transparency with the leader, as I'm sure you know, that really builds trust, right? People trust leaders who are authentic and transparent. That trust then leads to greater productivity, higher engagement, better results, just a better place to be. So by you being clear with your values, ensuring that with your teams, you're creating a culture and environment that people want to be in. And the final thing that I think it does for teams also is that it creates consistency. So when I'm really clear as a leader on what my values are, setting direction, setting goals based on that, we're doing our work that way, there's consistency. I know what to expect as an employee. So there's a question, thank you. Question is, so core values allow for a common voice? That is a great question, or I guess, what do I want to call that? It is a question, but yes, so core values allow for a common voice. They do, and I'm going to touch on that just a little bit more in a second to go a little deeper. They do allow for a common voice, but all to be sometimes perceived differently, right? It's not about putting people or things in a box, but it does allow consistency and direction and clarity, if that makes sense. Good question. So, okay, we're talking about it. It's important, but how do I discover what my values are? And if you've ever done this before, if you've ever gone through an exercise as an individual to figure out your values, let me know what you've done, because I love hearing about different ideas. But I'm just going to share with you a few things that I'm thinking of. Number one is always notice. Just take notice every day as you're going about your duties, you're having your conversations, you're doing your work. Notice what gets you like pretty excited. Like, what are the things where you're like, oh, what that person said really resonates with me really well. And on the opposite side, what are the things that kind of make you crazy, that sets your emotions off, that you don't feel good about? And you can start to uncover some themes in those. When you're noticing those things, you can start to uncover what some of your values might be. So that's just as I'm going along every day, heightened self-awareness thing. You can also do things like personality profiles, personality tools, which I talk about a lot because I love them. I think they're amazing. There's really good ones out there, and there's really not so good ones out there. But there's like DISC, the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, sort of. That's more about strengths, less on values. But the one that I love the most, I will show, is Insights Discovery. This is like a 20-some page profile, chock full of goodness. This one's about me. Insights Discovery is what I use in my practice. So I use it in all of my one-on-one coaching. I do team workshops with this. And when you read through these really good profiles, they are not meant to be like the textbook exactly of who you are, but they really provide a lot of insight into your preferences, your blind spots, your communication styles, all those types of things. And when you dig into them, you start to, again, uncover some themes that would provide you some insight into what really you hold deep down in your core. The other way that you can figure out what your values are is through these exercises, right? So what I'm showing with you now is, it's actually a 3-page worksheet that I put together that can help you discover what your values are. And so I'm just showing you the first page, but it's just an exercise that you can walk through. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a lot, but you really want to hone in on what are those top ones. And so if you're interested in doing this is a guided exercise. You can go to my website at angie-robinson.com/coaching-resources. And I have a few different free resources for you there. Just scroll down and find Discover Your Values, and you can download that worksheet and take some time for yourself. You know, maybe it's a 15-minute exercise that you go through to work on yourself and your own values. So if there's any other, Tim has a question. The question is blind spots. What are those? Good question, Tim. So blind spots are the things about us that we don't know about us. So other people see them, but we don't see them, right? So we think we know everything about ourselves, but the way that people perceive us or the way that the world perceives us is usually somewhat different than what we know, and those would be considered blind spots, things we don't know that others do. I always tell people, like when they do things like this, like a profile, they'll go through it and they'll read all these things about themselves, and they'll usually be like, yeah, man, this thing is in my brain, like how does it know all this about me? But there'll be one or two little phrases in there where they're like, yeah, no, I don't agree with that one. And I always say, Ask your partner, your spouse, a close friend to read that statement and see what they say. And oftentimes the comeback will be, well, yeah, you are totally like that. Like, yes, you don't, whatever, pay attention when someone else is talking to you or whatever it is. You'd be like, oh my God, I never realized that, but someone else knows that about me. That is a blind spot. We all have them, right? No judging. We all have them. So I'm just sharing with you quickly here as well. This is a snippet from my website. And so when I launched my business, I went through this exercise and I determined what my top values are. Now, again, I have way more than this for sure that I really have strong conviction about, but these are my top 3 that really, really stood out that I wanted to highlight in order to make decisions or help me make decisions and help me interact and make connections with my clients and how I'm going to use them, my marketing and all of those things. And so they are story, truth, and authenticity. And then I added some action words with them and then some value statements. So when you do come up with your values, you do want to create value statements to go with them so you can articulate how are they going to show up, what do they really mean. If someone wants to understand what story means to me, they can see what I believe about that, because what I believe about that might be different than you, right? So hopefully that makes sense. I will say, I just went through this exercise again a couple days ago in preparation for this and realized that I might have to revisit these and maybe even add 1 or 2 to my kind of top list. So point being, it's a great thing to kind of revisit every once in a while. As life goes on, as we get promoted, as we age, as we get more wisdom, as big life events happen to us, things can shift as well. As we become more aware of maybe biases that we have, our values can certainly shift. And so sometimes it's a good idea just to do this exercise every once in a while. Okay, I'm talking a lot here. So let's say you're clear on your values. What do you do with them now? So what I always say is, whenever I do any kind of coaching or team development or any of these things, it's so awesome to come up with this, oh my gosh, now I have something, but what do you do with it? If you don't do anything with it, it's all for naught. So this is the key. This is the important part. You know them, now you do something with them. And for those of you who have worked with me before, you know that so much of it is mindset work, right? And it's no different here with this. So starting with being open to vulnerability. So like I mentioned before, when you are clear on your values and you communicate them, you lead from them, you let them help you guide, or let them guide you in your behaviors, it does open up transparency, which leads to vulnerability, right? You might be letting people see you for who you really are, what you deeply believe in a way that you haven't before. Especially if you're a leader, like sometimes leaders feel like, nope, we have a hierarchy. I have to kind of keep this, shell around me. But if you lead from your core values, that's going to be known, and that's going to allow you, I guess, to be seen a little bit more open, which leads to vulnerability. And that can get uncomfortable. I'm telling you, it will create more trust and loyalty and dedication and all the things I mentioned before. But you just have to be aware of it, that if you get uncomfortable, that might be the time to just get comfortable with that uncomfortable. It's where the magic will happen. Communicate them. Communicate your values. I know with the teams that I've led, and I'm thinking in particular the last time that I had an HR team that I worked with, I was very clear on what my values were and where we're going to how we were going to implement them or use them to help guide what we did, how we talked with employees, how we led engagement within our organization. I was very clear with my team so they, again, could have some clear direction and understanding as well. But along with that, going to the third thing, this is kind of leads into a what not to do, is to check expectations. So just because my values are, these 4 things, doesn't mean that I expect my team or others around me to adopt those same values as their top values. They're individuals, they're going to have theirs as well. So the point of us, knowing our values, leading from them, letting them help us with decisions is for us, right? You might influence, likely you will influence other people, but you can't force others to adopt your values. It's a great time for people to check their own, right? And then they can decide if they're aligned and then, kind of go from there. But you don't want to make assumptions or try to force or say, these are my values, we're doing everything my way. Like, that's not the point of it, right? So you just have to kind of step back and check those expectations as well. I already mentioned this, notice discomfort, but I also mean that in the way of, if you notice something going on, again, a decision that you made, something that you did, and you just don't feel good about it, notice discomfort, it's a great time to check in with yourself, check for misalignment. What would I do differently next time? Something's not sitting right here. Rather than just kind of burying it under the rug, use it as an opportunity to course correct for yourself or decide what kind of decision you'll make next time. Always align. I've already talked about that a lot. Live into them. Oh my goodness. So one of the things with organizations, like when they approach or they decide it's time for us to establish core values or to reimagine them or recommunicate them, my question always is, what is your level of commitment to living into them? Because nothing is worse than when the values are just words on the wall, right? You got the pretty poster that's in the lunchroom that lists the values, but all the actions, all the behaviors, all the decisions are misaligned with them. That is the worst thing you can do. And so that is true for yourself as well, for you as a leader, for you as a person. If you are not living into your values, then don't even go through the area or communicate them, because when there's that misalignment, that is going to lead to the opposite of everything I talked about. That's going to lead to the distrust, the unmotivation, the disengagement, all of those types of things, right? And then stay accountable. Stay accountable to yourself. Maybe it's an accountability partner. Maybe you have a peer in your organization that you check each other all the time and give permission to call each other out if something's not aligned. You work with a coach, right? So somebody like what I do, working one-on-one with a coach is a great way to keep yourself accountable as well. Because again, when we get in the thick of things, we don't always recognize what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're behaving. Having that kind of third-party objective person can challenge you on that. And that's where a coach can come in as well. So that is what I have today. If there's any other questions or comments, for those of you that are live, you certainly can pop them in there. Again, if you're watching the replay, do so as well, because I will be checking them. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I don't know everything, so different thoughts and perspectives, always welcome. But I'll end it here with a quote from Roy E. Disney, who is Walt Disney's nephew, who said pretty simply, right? It's not hard to make decisions when you know what your values are. True words for Roy. So, thank you so much for joining. A couple of things I want to point out. I'd love to stay connected. You can visit my website at angie-robinson.com. All kinds of things going on there. I've got free resources for you there. I have replays of all the Coaching Moment conversations. I have my Monday Magic Messages, which is an email that goes out every Monday to my subscribers that takes a Disney quote and kind of, I break it down and apply it to leadership and life situations. Can come right to your inbox if you'd like to subscribe. Otherwise, they're all going to be on my website. They're not all there yet. Blog posts, you can schedule a free consultation to talk about how we can work together, or a discovery coaching call. And then follow me on socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I would love if you share this with anybody that you think might benefit from it, or share my website with them as well. And that is it. Thank you. You all have got this. You're awesome and amazing. Keep up that self-awareness work, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.